Nobody chooses and wakes up one day and says, guess what, I think I want to sleep with people for money. When I was being sold, it was so much. Some days it feels like I would have 40 different dates in a day.
When I first was with my trafficker, he pulled me off the street, so I didn't have anything. He clothed me, fed me, taught me everything I needed to know, drugged me, so I was like content, moldable, and happy. You end up owing them for things, for clothes, for food, for the drugs. I was not allowed to hold on to my money because they trap you.
I was the girl that thought it would never happen to me. It doesn't happen to captains of the cheerleading squad. That doesn't happen to students with a 4.0 GPA. But it does.
Okay, with morning huddle, I ask that you give me 3 things you're grateful for.
I began to get abused at 3, and as it is too often, by the hands that should have protected me and kept me safe. First by my brother, later by my father. I endured this from the time I was 3 until I was 12. As statistics show, you run away at 12. Boy, did I ever run. I couldn't get far enough away from it. As a girl is typically in the life from 5 to 7 years, and takes 7, 8 points of contact before they're ready to enter the program. And after 5 to 7 years, they usually end up in a courtroom. Thankfully, I didn't end up in a courtroom. I stood in front of Judge Malucci of Bradenton. She looked at me and she said, "You need Selah freedom." I didn't know a program like this existed. I just thought that I would be labeled as a prostitute. Nobody would hear my backstory. I didn't know what life could be like. I didn't know I had a future.
What's your thing for your birthday? What are you about to do, Taylor?
Right. Okay, I will get an advocate. Can you grab an advocate to show them how to sign in, please? Hey.
We have a huge tourist population that comes here. We have a lot of conventions. So very much the mindset of what happens on vacation or at the convention doesn't necessarily go home with me. By the age of 17, I was approached and propositioned by somebody as a minor, ended up being trafficked essentially by that person, and was in the life from about the age of 17 until 24. My role at Selah Freedom is to be able to connect with survivors from the very first point of contact. So now we are getting ready to go on the strip where there is a lot of hotels where we know sex trafficking has been happening, and a lot of victims out on the streets in this area. Hi, how are you? Good. Do you work here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm Misty. Hi, nice to meet you. I was just out making contact. I work for, have you ever heard of Selah Freedom?
I think I have.
You don't think you have? And so I've just been out kind of making contact to girls, not knowing if they need any help with anything. So I don't know if that applies to you if you're...
Do you have a card?
I do. I have our hotline card. So primarily we help women that have ever had any history of exploitation. Do you know what that means? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have a lot of resources, from safe housing to help with job placement to trauma therapy. So, yeah.
Oh, you have to work today?
Yeah. And are you safe right now? Are you from here?
Yeah. Well, I'm from up north originally, but I've been here a few years. Yeah, I'm okay, I think. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I mean, she was very emotional meeting with her. But I did offer to just go meet with her and have a cup of coffee. And that way we could talk about maybe what her needs are. So we'll see where it goes.
Is that bag big enough, or do you ladies need one?
When a woman comes to Selah Freedom, you got to think that it's the first time that she's probably stopped using drugs for probably many, 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 many years. It's the first time she's not continually busy. This is the pause, rest, reflect stage, and she's sitting, and they're getting activities to think and letting their mind just sort of clear. Society is so quick to be like, oh, we have a drug problem, it's drugs, it's this. If they're not addressing the root of sexual abuse, the minute that they are out, there's another guy, they are back to that place of shame, because it's all the childhood stuff.
What happens when you blame? Are you going to find a solution blaming anything?
I was literally trying to blame like a certain person or like situations for my last like relapse, but in all reality it was me just focusing on the negative.
I love it when those light bulbs go off. You finally make that connection. That's huge.
When I first heard about Selah, I wasn't sure that I had trauma. I couldn't call my trafficker a trafficker when I first got here. It was the situation. I thought I was bad, and that's just what happened to people like me. But once I saw that and really got to know myself and love myself enough to call it for what it was, to call it abuse, to call it rape, to call it molestation, then I realized like how affected I really was.
I came to Selah to change my life. There's a lot of therapy, which is what I needed, because I've dealt with like my addiction, but I wasn't dealing with like the root cause of like why I was using.
Selah is built so you obtain things gradually. I went through college while I was in the program. I graduated while I was in the program. So I was stable mentally, physically, emotionally with wraparound services. I never had to face any challenge alone. Flashbacks, anything that would be triggering, they were there at every moment to guide me, to help me, to get to where I wanted to be. I've almost been on staff with Selah for almost a year now. It keeps me healthy. It reminds me when I walk through the door of assessment and I can relate to the women and what they're really walking through. It's been a huge blessing in my life to be able to pour the tools that Selah has given me and that health into the next survivor, but also to be able to relate where they're sitting.
I can say without a shadow of a doubt that if I hadn't come to Selah, I would have picked up again. I would be dead right now. I've been given my opinions back, which is awesome. You know, I've had them, but I've never been allowed to share them, and that goes back to childhood. And I've learned this last year and a half that I want to be heard.